The Cowboys are reaching back to 1900 to take on the ASU Sun Devils. They're going to need that inspiration of the Oklahoma A&M Aggies. The inspiration is going to have to be enough to shut down Cam Scatterbo. But the real question is Alan Bowman going to be enough to get the W on homecoming?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. Today, we have a special crossover edition as we get to break down the Arizona State Sun Devils. Today, we are partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now. You can get a big return when new customers place a $5 bet. They can get $150 back in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of the Cowboys versus the Sun Devils, and we're going to bring in Richie Bradshaw from Locked On Sun Devils to help us break down this game. How are we feeling today, my guy?
Feeling good. This is a game that I've been looking forward to since the start of the year. Fun fact, when I was doing my preview over the summer, I said this was one of the three most unwinnable games for the Sun Devils going into the year. Now, don't get me wrong, this didn't suddenly become this is going to be an easy win.
Right.
I think the Sun Devils have a puncher's chance in this game, but we'll see. There's a lot going your way. It's homecoming. The jerseys are sick. It's a gotta win now for Oklahoma State to make sure they can go bowling. So there's a lot on the line here for Oklahoma State, and it's in Stillwater. So still not feeling great, but I feel a little better than I did in July.
Well, one of the fun factors in this game for me now is the fact that we are going back to the 1900 through 1922 uniforms to try to make this happen, which is ironic because I'm pretty sure that was Alan Bowman's freshman year of college, right around the end of this. So as we look for inspiration for Alan Bowman, you gave me some good news right before we got on the air. Well, good news for Sun Devils, maybe not great news for Cowboy fans. It appears as though Sam Leavitt is, in fact, going to play. How healthy is he, and what do you think that he's going to be able to provide in this game in Stillwater?
Yeah, so head coach Kenny Dillingham confirmed today after practice that Sam Leavitt is good to go. He will be the starter for the Sun Devils on Saturday. Now, Leavitt was briefly knocked out of the game against Utah a couple weeks ago, ended up coming back out for the second half, and then missed the following game against Cincinnati because of a rib injury. He actually told us post-game against Utah that he had spasms and was having problems breathing after the hit he took against Utah. So for him to play the second half was pretty crazy, and then it wasn't a surprise that he sat out against Cincinnati. They gave him about a 2 to 4 week window to come back out, be healthy and good to go. He took the 2 weeks. He sat out Cincinnati. ASU's coming off a bye. Perfect situation for ASU. And this is a guy that he does a lot for your offense. And he is a redshirt freshman. And the best way I can describe it is he's playing like a redshirt freshman. There's highs and there's lows. Right. There's some great passes and there's some what the heck are you doing passes. And there's a lot of growing that he's done, but he's gotten better each week. And I will tell you right now up front, he is a dual threat and he can beat you with his legs. And that's one of the biggest aspects of his game. We're all going to be wondering, though, coming off a rib injury, how much are you going to be running? Are you going to be a little more cautious? Should we expect you to just be confident all over again? What's that game planning look like? What does the coaching look like? Because a lot of his running is when the pocket breaks down. I'm just curious if a lot has changed or if they're going to get right back to what they do as their bread and butter.
Well, as you are very well aware, we've had a propensity to not be able to tackle anybody other than oxygen for a good part of the season. So realistically, I don't know that Sam Leavitt needs to do a lot of rushing. We'll talk about him in segment 3, but You have this battering ram named Scam Cadbu that I don't know that anybody in the country is prepared to go up against on a consistent basis. So that's going to be a difficult proposition. As I look at this thing from an Oklahoma State perspective, you are right. The uniforms have, ironically enough, inspired at least the fan base to show up
They're
and
so
show out a
clean.
little bit more. It being a night game is going to be something that is pretty beneficial. Because Boone Pickens Stadium, if it is in the right environment, that crowd can get pretty wild. Of course, the stadium is literally right on top of you. You can touch the opposing players if you're in the front row. I don't know that that's a good thing, but it has been something that's beneficial to us. The ticket, though, for that to work is things have to start to snowball negatively, right? The benefit to the sideline being literally on top of you where they can reach out and touch the players essentially is whenever things are going bad and we can hear the entire conversation, that's when the fan base starts calling out the plays and joking about this guy, arguing with this guy. And you know how it is. It can snowball. It can become a thing. So if it's not even close, then it takes that atmospheric advantage completely out of the equation. And I think that the weather may be somewhat helpful in keeping it close, but that's going to be contingent upon us likely being able to run the ball, which could be a difficulty. Whenever you look at Alan Bowman versus Sam Leavitt, what is something that Alan Bowman does that you may actually be slightly concerned about and vice versa?
I mean, Bowman is still a very confident passer. He's someone that you have to respect with all of the years of experience that he has. Right, wrong, or indifferent, there's not really any throw he doesn't think he can't make. And ASU has been really up and down in the secondary. They've had great games, and they've had games where they've been run over. They are really young at the corner position. Keith Abney and Javen Robinson are in huge roles this year, and they have not been starters prior to this season. They have some highs. I will tell you, Keith Abney is very impressive to me, but they've gotten beat at times this year, and those guys play 90% of the snaps. So a guy like Alan Bowman might be able to identify, hey, these corners that are inexperienced might be a little bit tired, and I might be able to have one of my phenomenal receivers get away to find themselves open, and then there's a big play. And with the confidence that he has, I would not be surprised if Bowman had a really, really solid day against Arizona State. There's a chance that a young and exciting secondary could get the best of him, but if you're asking me to pick one side or the other, I would tell you that Bowman is probably going to have one of the better days that he has had over the season.
Well, you do have a Stovall on the offensive side of the ball that everybody needs to be paying attention to. We'll talk about some of the top players, but before we get to that, I do have to draw the parallel. I said it earlier in the season and even last season, I find Kenny Dillingham to kind of be somewhat reminiscent of a Mike Gundy, especially early in the career. A hometown guy that is coming back to kind of rebuild everything, and he's doing it in a very, very quick order, right? You're in year 2, and there's already a considerable difference under Kenny Dillingham. Now, we're year 20 under Mike Gundy, and there's also a significant difference. But nonetheless, I will say, from an outsider's perspective, I think a lot of us in Big 12 country have been excited about the addition of Arizona State. I think a lot of us were rooting on Arizona State even when they were in the Pac-12. And to me, it's partially because of the Kenny Dillingham being somewhat reminiscent of, Mike Gundy coming up. Do you see that parallel? And what can you speak to how Arizona State country feels about Kenny Dillingham before we move on here?
First of all, if Kenny Dillingham is even half as successful as Mike Gundy, oh my goodness, he's going to be remembered as a legend forever. I myself am a huge Mike Gundy guy. Before coming to the Big 12, he was one of my favorite coaches in college football. I think he's hysterical. I think he's very well spoken. I think he's just a really good coach at the end of the day. And having the amount of success he has had for the amount of time that he has been there is beyond phenomenal, and use any word that you would like to describe him. Kenny Dillingham having any form of success that Gundy has had would be absolutely massive for a Sun Devils football program that, look, we don't have expectations of winning national championships. We do have expectations of 8 to 9 win seasons on a consistent basis, going to decent bowl games, and having some years where maybe you make a run at the college football playoff. The first year of the playoff in 2014, ASU was the number 6 team in the nation before they went to Oregon State and wet the bed and completely eliminated themselves from the playoffs. They have that capability to be one of the better teams in the nation. We don't expect that every year, though. With Kenny Dillingham, there's a lot that he brings to the table, and one of the biggest things is being a local. He grew up in the Valley, is what we call it. All these surrounding cities around Phoenix, we call that the Valley. So he grew up in the Valley, and he's gotten the fans and the alumni and the students reintegrated into the program and reinvested. And the way that he's got this program, the direction that they're going right now, it's really exciting. And it's something that we've been waiting to see for a long time. And it feels like the sky might be the limit under Dillingham. He's young, he's smart, he's innovative with his play calling. He understands NIL and the landscape of college sports these days. This feels like a really good fit. And I will tell you that everybody, fans, players, students, alumni, and anybody else is a big fan of Kenny Dillingham.
Well, I think a lot of us are big fans of Kenny Dillingham as well. You did mention Mike Gundy. From a historical perspective, is one of the winningest coaches in the country. I think you could potentially make the argument that there's a little bit of, maybe potentially complacency or obviously out and out confusion on what is happening in this season. But we don't need to have any confusion out here because we can capitalize on the dollar bills, ladies and gentlemen, with FanDuel. It's time for you to monetize today. The Cowboys haven't really been giving us a lot to be excited about, but that's okay because we've got several dudes in the NFL that provide that for us. Get some NFL action in today with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 back in bonus bets if that $5 bet wins. This sportsbook app is the best in the business, and you already know if you're looking for NFL capitalization, this is a place to do it. When you get that tingling sensation, you can feel it in your loins in the middle of the game that something crazy is about to happen. Your team's about to flip the game on its head. You can now check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more from the same place where you place your bets from. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Get that 150 bones back in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. With FanDuel.com, you've got to get squared away, get your monetary gains figured out when that tingling sensation happens for you. Get with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Richie, it's money-making season, baby. All right, buddy. Now we can kind of shift a little bit more here towards some of the players that we need to watch out for. Of course, from Oklahoma State perspective, everybody's going to naturally talk about, is Ollie Gordon going to get off the injury-prone limitations that he's had recently on top of the limitations, coming into it, which does beg the question, are we going to see some more of the true freshman Rodney Fields at running back? I believe so, because Ollie Gordon's certainly not 100%. He's going to play. He's going to try to do the daggone thing for as many carries as possible, but we should see some Sesi Vaialahe mixed in there again with some more true freshman Rodney Fields. From a defensive perspective, Jaleel Johnson, defensive end, number 95, is back. I expect Deshaun Brown to have a potentially big day as well. The question for us is always going to be a nose tackle. We've got the guys that can move houses and mountains, but it's not being able to kind of translate on the field. And then defensively, we have Justin Wright back. It is going to be a massive addition for that linebacker core to kind of help get some things regalvanized. In the back end, we've got a lot of difficulties, right? Our starting free safety just announced that he has an ACL tear. So this is going to be a maturation process, I'm thinking, at least in this game. This should be a game where we finally get to see some more underclassmen like Landon Cleveland and David Kabongo playing safety. We could potentially see some guys like RJ Lester at the cornerback position as well. So as we round out the Cowboy conversation, what do you say, sir, about the Sun Devils that Cowboy country needs to pay attention to?
This is a really interesting Sun Devils team. There's a handful of really good players. I don't know if there's any superstars on this team the way that Ollie Gordon is a superstar. Right. And I know that Gordon hasn't been what he was last year. He still scares the bejesus out of me. I will tell you that there is not a single chance I go into Saturday and I go, oh yeah, we're going to hold them down. ASU has had a good run defense this year, but they still got run over by Taj Brooks. They got run over by Devin Neal. The best running backs in the Big 12 have had success. Ollie Gordon has a couple of 100-yard games under his belt. I know he's found the end zone over the last couple of games. He's likely in for a decent day, but Sun Devils' run defense is pretty good, and they do it at all three levels. On the interior of the defensive line, you've got nose tackle CJ Fight, and he was almost a full-time starter as a true freshman last year. Might have missed like 2 or 3 games just figuring out the rotation, but I mean, he's a gap plugger. It's very difficult to run against CJ Fight. And then at the linebacker core, Keyshawn Elliott, one of the best kept secrets in the Big 12. He's just a phenomenal player. He's a great tackler. He's opportunistic with getting sacks. He's got an interception on the year. He's just a very quality player. You've got one of my favorite defenders on the Sun Devils. He was the team MVP last year, and he's got an argument this year, is Shamari Simmons. Simmons is a safety, but he has been moved to the nickel role due to injuries this year. And goodness, he is fast. ASU does a good job stuffing the run up front. It's difficult to run between the tackles. So when you try to run it outside, Shamari Simmons is so quick that he's able to set that edge the way that a linebacker or an edge rusher would set the edge. And he's a very quality tackler. He's going to be incredibly crucial in this game against Ollie Gordon and the rest of that Oklahoma State offense. So those are the 3 guys on defense, I would tell you, that are going to be critical for ASU. CJ Fight at nose tackle, Keyshawn Elliott at linebacker, Shamari Simmons at nickel/safety for the team.
Well, I can tell you from a matchup perspective, of course, I'm going to be watching my dude, Melquan Stovall, take on Cam Smith. But outside of him, you have that Gilroy dude still there, because that mother trucker is good. I don't like that guy, but you know what? He'll have the opportunity to line up across from Corey Black. From a wide receiver perspective, what does Arizona State kind of bring to the table? Because the back end of our defense has been extremely problematic this season. And even when we had a full bill of health, this was still an issue schematically for us without leaving massive windows open for people to settle down in. So wide receivers are scary for us. So who, do you really expect to pop off and have a big day in this particular game?
Allow me to introduce you to wide receiver 1, Jordan Tyson. Tyson transferred to ASU last year from Colorado, sat out the whole year as he was recovering from a knee injury. He was greenlit to go over the spring to get back into practices. He looked solid. Fall rolls around. Man, this guy looks good. He's built like a number 1 receiver. He's fast. And unfortunately, they haven't been able to unlock the deep ball this year. There's just inconsistencies with Leavitt's ball placement down the field. But Tyson's a guy that the moment the ball is in his hands, something big can happen. He has been the most targeted receiver for the Sun Devils this year. He's been the most reliable receiver. He's just a big play threat. And being able to attack all 3 levels of the field is something that really opens up the offense for ASU. You have a great run game, Cameron Scadaboo and the rest of the guys, but Jordan Tyson is the player that they go to through the air to be able to open up everything else. And he's very good. I will tell you right now, that is wide receiver 1. And unless you guys give him the clamps, which I wouldn't rule out because any given Saturday it can happen.
Right.
Unless he gets the clamps, I would get used to hearing Jordan Tyson's name, jersey number 0, because you got to have that vibe.
I don't get me started on the number 0. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go there. I do like it on Ollie Gordon. It is starting to grow.
I was going to say, at least you got a good number 0 on your team.
Right. That I will have to admit. Now, wonderful guest in front of the show, Isaiah Glass, has been able to fill in admirably this season because our starting left tackle, Dalton Cooper, went down a few weeks ago. And Isaiah was playing a lot of right tackle already, but now that we've made the ability to slide him back over to left tackle. He's been very, very good for us. What does Arizona State have at offensive line, since you gifted us one of the best tackles in the league, in my personal opinion? What else do we need to worry about? Because our defensive line has been absolutely atrocious at getting pressure. Is there a weakness on that line or a strength that we need to try to avoid in order to get some sort of pressure?
I want to make one quick note, and I'm not going to get too much into detail because there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but this is a revenge game for ASU's defense against Isaiah Glass.
Okay.
They are going to go after him. Just be prepared.
I like that. I like that.
There's some animosity between him and the Sun Devils. So this is a game that I'm sure Isaiah had circled on his calendar, and I promise you that ASU had this game circled too.
Well, and you know what? I will say from his perspective, it was a very ballsy move for him to come over, because we had, 5 returning starting offensive linemen, and we had 3 more that had, in addition to up to 220 starts between the whole bunch. So, hats off to him. And again, when he came on the show, he was a lot of fun. So I'm obviously intrigued and excited about that matchup. But we'll talk about the big one, Ollie Gordon versus Cam Scadaboo. But before we do that, I do have to also let the fine folks out here know that whenever you're needing the pick me up in the game, there's only one source for you to do that, and that's 5 Hour Energy. When you're trying to get the pick me up to try to get the dub, I hope Alan Bowman is chug-a-lugging himself some 5 Hour Energy. But that is the best source in the game whenever you need that pickup. If you're a passionate football fan and it's not just a hobby, it's more like a way of life, you need to make sure you stay engaged through the tailgate, through the celebrations, through the end of the game and beyond, which is why they've created the best 5 Hour Energy shot ever. There's a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are the first in the parking lot and the last ones to leave. Well, we like to potentially not be inebriated in the process, but you can stay in the game, whether it's a morning game late into the night, whether it's a massive play or a big upcoming matchup or the thing that is going to tip the hand for your team to win. 5 Hour Energy can help you stay engaged. They know that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires a lot of heart, a lot of soul, and of course, a lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing out your jersey to prepare for the big time game, do not waste any time. Get this limited edition flavor from 5 Hour Energy right now. Help you stay fueled throughout the course of the season, because your fan fuel is in this week. Whatever it is, you need to do it with 5 Hour Energy. Available at 5hourenergy.com. Ship nationwide. Get in the game. Stay engaged with 5 Hour Energy. All right, buddy. So we're back to talk about what I think is easily one of the best running backs in the Big 12. I think he's currently sitting at 3rd in the Big 12 when it comes to some of the overall numbers. He's just shy of that 900-yard mark, and I think he's at like 5.8 yards per carry. He was an issue from the very, very get-go, right? I knew he was going to be a problem last year. Because we can't tackle oxygen, I will admit I'm extremely worried about this matchup. I've been worried about Cam Scadaboo all year, right? Just like I was worried about playing Tevin Neal and RJ Harvey and DJ Giddens. Those potential matchups were, slightly problematic, even if your defense can tackle somebody. What makes Cam Scadaboo so untackleable, and how much fun is it to have him at Arizona State, buddy?
It is 12 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 for how fun it is to have him.
Fair play.
To me, oh my goodness, it's the contact balance with Cam Scadaboo. The way he is able to take on hits, absorb them, and first of all, it feels like he just throws it right back at you. Whatever you're delivering, it's just twice as bad back out to the defenders. It's the craziest thing. But the body control he has. There was a run against Utah, and I'm sure if you're a diehard college football fan, you have probably seen the highlight where it looks like he's going to go down, and he just plants his hand and pushes himself right back up, and it's a 50-yard touchdown. Like that.
See, our quarterback Garrett Rangel tried to stiff arm the turf, and it didn't work out very well for him. So maybe Cam Scattaboo needs to share his workout program for our Garrett Rangel. That is
no kidding.
Dude, I want to say this. So I have a comp, all right? And tell me if I'm crazy.
Hit me.
But to me, Cam Scattaboo is kind of like the Darren Sproles, but he just doesn't tan quite as good. Would you say that's potentially on the same level there? Because, yeah, he doesn't go down. When you think he's down, he somehow pops back up. And whether his knee is 2 inches or 2 centimeters from the ground, he will still run you over. He defies the laws of gravity, and he's a lot of fun to watch. So I'm sure it's been pretty mesmerizing for you guys because we got to see something similar last year in Ollie Gordon. The dude just couldn't be tackled. Obviously, this season people realized if you put 8 dudes in the box and you make Alan Bowman beat you with his arm, ta-da, you have a recipe for success. So do you think Arizona State tries to get too cute in this game? Or do you feel like they're going to do what everybody else has done and just stop the run and make Alan Bowman beat you?
I think you just need to understand who the best player on the football field is. And for ASU, for Oklahoma State, offense or defense, the best player on the football game, on the field in this game is Ollie Gordon. And ASU needs to understand that not stopping him. You can't stop him. The most you can do is hope to contain him. Right. And if you find a way to limit the damage he can do, then you should be able to control the pace of this game. Offensively for ASU, I mean, the best way to keep Ollie Gordon from beating you is to keep him off the field. So ASU needs to control the time of possession in this game. And similar to with Gordon, Cam Scattaboo is he's a monster. He can make big plays happen. I have a nickname for him that I have been trying to get rolling for a while. I call him the people's running back.
Yes.
Because he can run it, he can catch it, he can pass it, he can punt it, and he's your mom's favorite football player.
You don't think the less tan version of Darren Sproles has quite the same ring to it?
So I don't mind that at all, especially because Cam does catch the football. He's just a big old bowling ball, man. So if you gave Darren Sproles the ability to just run your you-know-what over, that's not bad. He's good. He's really, really good.
You meant to say run your burrito insertion backside off, I'm pretty sure is what you were.
That's exactly what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Verbatim.
I got you. I got you, bro.
If they get him going, this'll be a slugfest, I think. It's funny that you brought up that a lot of teams stack the box against Oklahoma State and they tell Alan Bowman, beat me with your arm, because that's the same thing that teams are doing to Arizona State. Is they see this redshirt freshman quarterback and they see a potential next level player. I don't know. We'll see potential next level player in Cam Scattaboo, and they say, we're going to stack the box. You're going to have to run it. And ASU, as stubborn as they are, and they're going to go, no, we're going to keep running it. Just so you know, we're just going to keep going. And Scattaboo, maybe first 2 downs, he gets 3 yards, and then 3rd down and 7, it's a 15-yard pickup. It's just so difficult to stop him on a down-to-down basis. And that's going to be a huge key for them defensively as well, is just keeping Oklahoma State on the sidelines. And if you can somehow get Oklahoma State into a situation where they have to throw themselves back into the game, I don't hate that chance for ASU.
Well, I will admit that if you talked about Cam Scattaboo getting to the league, I mean, Danny Woodhead made it to the league and played for years, and I feel like Cam Scattaboo is a little bit more talented than Danny Woodhead. So if there's a light at the end of the tunnel for ASU fans, I would say that Cam's definitely got an NFL future ahead of him. All right, so we'll shift gears and get to a little bit of the prediction stuff. You mentioned the best player on the field, likely being Ollie Gordon. From Oklahoma State perspective, you do need to pay attention to Brennan Presley. I think he's going to have the opportunity to break Rashawn Wood's receiving record in this very ball game. And if you noticed last week, the game plan was throw to Brennan Presley 16 times. That was the game plan. And the dude put up almost 200 yards. So pay attention to Brennan Presley. I really would like to see him get that record in this game, just like DeJon Stribling. Dude, we have a couple NFL wide receivers that are just getting kind of wasted this season because we don't have a quarterback that's able to distribute them the ball consistently enough for us to sustain drives. So speaking of sustaining drives, you mentioned ball control being somewhat pivotal for Arizona State in this game. That is one of the reasons why I do have the Sun Devils taking down the Cowboys, because of the run game behind Cam Scadaboo. I know it's homecoming, and the Oklahoma A&M Tiger/Aggie uniforms are coming out, but I still have a lot of questions about, Alan Bowman's ability to throw us out of a potentially bad situation. And then secondarily, defensively, we haven't stopped anybody. Like, we have not allowed, or we haven't given up less than over 230 yards rushing pretty much all season. And I don't see it changing in this game. Unless Cam Scadaboo's decided not to make the trip, that's about the only way I see us getting this W. So if you guys control the ground game like I think that you might be able to do, I do have Arizona State with the W. I'm going to say 24 to 17 Sun Devils. What do you say, sir?
Real quick, you brought up Brendan Presley. I just want to let you know, big Presley fan. On my Big 12 preseason list for the media poll, I had him in my first team list. So very, very aware of how good that guy is. And if it's not Ollie Gordon, he's number one on my list of guys that I'm afraid of.
Yep. Very fair.
This is such an interesting game because there's so many things that are going Oklahoma State's way. You've got phenomenal jerseys.
Okay.
When you look good, you play good. When you play good, or you look good, you feel good, you play good, right? That's what Dion says. You've got homecoming. And is it called the best homecoming or the biggest homecoming?
Well, now we call it America's brightest homecoming, but technically it really is the biggest. Dude, I wish you were going to Stillwater. For all Arizona State country that will be there, I will say that wholeheartedly, right, doing this job, we've been able to kind of cover the country and see some things. Oklahoma State's homecoming is absolutely wild. We do more for homecoming than we do anything else throughout the course of the year in Stillwater, America. The only thing that would be comparable would be like a massive concert. That's just, they spend weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks doing this homecoming stuff. It's all automated and it's block upon block upon block. It's absolutely crazy, dude. Like, anybody who's a fan of college football and historical things at universities, it is a bucket list opportunity just to see that homecoming. And it being a night game, I think that's the best part because it gives Sun Devil fans the opportunity to see what I'm talking about, because it is very rare. And that is one thing that we have never changed over the last 125 years, which is what this anniversary game is for us, is that homecoming's always been massive. Matter of fact, from like 1909 to 1930, we claimed one of the biggest drum set in the history of America.
Okay.
And it's because we weren't great at football, man, right? We just weren't. Growing up, we were not. We were a wrestling school because back then wrestling was way bigger than football. Remember? But as football grew, we didn't grow with it. We stayed pretty stubborn. A matter of fact, the first decade or so of us being an institution, all of our coaches were also players on the roster. So they were doing both. That's how much we devoted to college football in the beginning. But here we are now. And I will admit, like you said, we do have some things going in our direction for this game, which does give me a little bit of excitement. But again, the inability to tackle and the inability to be able to rely on Alan Bowman for an entirety of 4 quarters, those seem to be problematic for me, on top of not being able to stop Cam Scadaboo.
Yep. The vibes are going to be there. Homecoming, great uniforms, a night game. It's in Stillwater. There's a lot. The one thing that I'm really paying attention to, and the one thing that's sitting in the back of my mind, is Oklahoma State is 0-5 in Big 12 play. I can't imagine that they are trying to stay winless in the conference. And this is a great opportunity to get that win against a quality football team. With all that said, I do trust my Sun Devils to get this win. It's going to be low scoring and it's going to be a slugfest, because I would not be surprised if Cam Scadaboo got 30 carries. ASU has a 3-point spread, according to our friends over at FanDuel. ASU is not covering that. 21-20 is my final. ASU over Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
Right. The super tight one. It doesn't get any tighter than a 1-point W.
I'm going to sweat it out, man. I am going to sweat it out.
I will say, dude, with us being at the basement of the Big 12, which I will admit, I never thought I would be saying, like, I didn't think for the next decade I would ever say, oh, yeah, we're the dead last team in the conference. I never thought I'd be saying that. So
I didn't either.
It is weird, dude. Arizona State's in year 2 with somewhat seemingly still a pretty new roster. We're in year 20 with 20 returning starters and almost 90% of our roster, yet we look exact opposite. We look like the 2-year team that's trying to figure out how to put the roster together still to some degree. You guys are playing more like the veteran squad that doesn't make all of the little mistakes and doesn't have all of the little difficulties that cause games to get wider and get longer. Because I'm sure you've noticed teams fourth down against us, it's like almost automatic. Now, we're pretty good on third down, but fourth down has become literally
getting off the field.
It's become just another part of opposition's play calling sheets. Nobody punts when they're past the 50 against Oklahoma State, and they shouldn't. There's no reason to. So
Kenny likes going for it on fourth too. Just so you know, Kenny loves to go for it. He's a big analytics guy.
Well, I'll tell you, if there's a game that our defense has the ability to stand up, it needs to be this one because – yeah, the consensus on our defense coordinator is he's way and too far over his head. So he kind of needs a big game, and there's not very many backs in the league that you can, compare up to Cam Scadaboo. So if he can have a good game against Cam Scadaboo and we can somewhat limit Sam Leavitt, yeah, I do think that the momentum should carry. But I will say, if it's close in the fourth quarter and the crowd is into it, that I could see. That I could see us turning out a W if that were the case. That I will say.
The other big factor here, and I know we got a nice, long, detailed conversation, but ASU cannot kick the football, which is why I said 21-20. They are not a good team when it comes to field goals. They are kicking 53.8% as a team this year for field goals. They can't do it. They literally just hosted open tryouts for walk-ons to come and advertise themselves to be kickers. There's a viral clip of Kenny Dillingham post-game against Cincinnati, flat out called the kicking game atrocious. He's walked it back and he's apologized. And I hate it because I'm like, you got to call what it is.
Be
sometimes.
Real. Yes.
So if this game comes down to field goals, ASU is not winning it. You're not. You're barely kicking 50% this year. They've had 3 different options. One of them hasn't even kicked because he's that bad. They can't do it. I do not trust ASU in the kicking game. If it comes down to field goals, Oklahoma State's winning this game. I don't care if your kicker was kicking 55%, let alone I think he's 75% when I picked. Yeah. 12-16. Yeah.
Our kicker's
I like those odds a lot better. So if it gets down to field goals, it's going to be the Pokes.
And our punter is the best kept secret on the roster. He's 6'2", 220, runs a 4.59 40, and we haven't used him at all. So if there's, I've been calling for it. All right, there's going to be a game where we have a special punt for him or whatever the case may be. Hopefully it's this one, but y'all heard it here first. If it comes down to special teams, Richie Bradshaw says the Cowboys have the opportunity to get the W here. All right, Richie. I greatly appreciate it, dude. This has been an absolute blast. Is there anything else you want to leave as a parting shot before we skedaddle on off of here, brother?
It's been a good time. If I can ask you one question for my ASU fans that are out there, give a recommendation for the best place to get a bite to eat.
Well, Eskimo Joe's is pretty famous for a multitude of reasons. Of course, their cheese fries are nationally known. But right across, there's a really, really good burger joint now called The Garage that is highly recommended because you can eat some burgers, eat some food, drink some beer, and it's literally right next to the football stadium. So it's a pretty good trip. It's a pretty quick trip. But if you're into pizza, the best pizza joint in all of Oklahoma is in Stillwater, and that's Hideaway.
All right, dude, you got a little bit of everything. I might need to make the trip out, have a few days out there and try all of them. Sounds great.
It might be worth it, dude. It might be absolutely worth it. All right, Richie, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you didn't need that anyways. The light went
off
out.
at the last second.
That means it knew it was time, or your house is getting unceremoniously ready for Halloween. Maybe
I hope not.
It.
I got to make it through tonight.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. Everybody say hey to Richie Bradshaw. Thank you very much for coming on here, brother, man. Hopefully this is a whale of a game. Even if it's at least close, that'll make it fun. That'll make it worth the wait in gold. All right, dude. I greatly appreciate you. I appreciate your time. We'll have to have you back on again, brother, man.
Any week that's not this week.
Okay, fair play.
But not this week. Any
All
other
right,
week,
dude.
go Pokes.
We're out of here. I appreciate you, everybody. That is a Richie Bradshaw. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you liked it. I don't think. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe my podcast and people out there. You're the bricks, the bread, the butter, the fountain, the fondue, the foundation, the funny stuff. You're all of it. You know what to do. Hit the stars, leave a review. That is all we're going to have for this one right here. Later, my taters.